The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with soft blue light. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in curved rows that rose high into the domed ceiling. Some looked almost human. Others had scales, tentacles, or glowing skin. All of them were quiet now, looking at the large screen at the front of the hall. As we can see from the yearly reports, most developing worlds are progressing at expected rates, said Ellis Jordan. He was tall and thin with silver hair and wore the formal green robes of a senior ambassador. His voice echoed in the silent chamber as he moved his hand across the display, showing charts and images of various planets. Ellis had given this same report many times over his long career. The Galactic Council met every 100 years to review developing species, those who had not yet discovered faster-than-light travel. Most council members found these meetings boring. New civilizations typically took thousands of years to develop. The technology needed to join galactic society. Sector 8 remains stable, with the Marzidian species showing promising advances in renewable energy, Ellis continued, swiping to the next slide. Moving on to Sector 9, planet Earth continues to... Ambassador Jordan, a voice called out from the back of the hall. Heads turned as a young woman with short brown hair hurried down the central aisle. She wore the plain blue uniform of a junior observer. Ellis frowned at the interruption. Observer Warren, this is highly irregular. Please take your seat and wait for the question period. Lily Warren did not slow down. Sir, this can't wait, it's about Earth. She reached the front and handed Ellis a small data device. We've detected multiple objects leaving their solar system. They're expanding much faster than predicted. Murmurs spread through the hall as Ellis examined the data. His eyes widened. This can't be right. Are you certain these readings are accurate? Yes, sir, triple verified. Lily pointed to specific points on the display. These are artificial objects, not natural phenomena. Earth has achieved rudimentary interstellar capability. The murmurs grew louder. An older council member with blue-tinted skin stood up. This was Victor Reeves, representative of the ancient Aldorian civilization. Impossible, Victor said. His voice was deep and carried natural authority. Humans were launching primitive chemical rockets just 70 years ago. Our models gave them at least 3 more centuries before achieving any form of interstellar travel. Ellis studied the data again, his face growing more concerned. The evidence appears solid, Counselor. Somehow they've accelerated their development far beyond our projections. How? Asked another council member. Have they been receiving outside help? That would violate our most sacred laws. The hall erupted in loud discussion. Some members demanded immediate investigation. Others called for containment measures. Ellis raised his hands for quiet. We must approach this systematically, he said when the noise reduced. I propose we form a special assessment team to evaluate this development. Observer Warren, you will join this team since you discovered this anomaly. Victor Reeves stood again. I recommend immediate containment protocols. If humans are expanding into space before achieving proper social harmony, they could pose a serious threat to neighboring systems. Ellis shook his head. We don't have enough information yet to justify containment. First we investigate, then we decide. The debate continued as the council divided into factions. Nobody noticed the small figure watching from the shadows near the service entrance. This figure slipped away quietly as the arguments grew louder. Meanwhile, on Earth in a NASA research facility in Colorado, Paul Fletcher stared at his computer screen with growing excitement. He was 32 years old with curly black hair and a permanent 5 o'clock shadow. He had been analyzing data from the deep space monitoring satellites for 3 years, and today something was different. Kate, come look at this, he called, to his colleague. Kate Winters looked up from her own workstation. She was 35 with shoulder-length blonde hair usually tied back in a simple ponytail. As the lead astrophysicist on their project, she had the final say on which anomalies deserved further investigation. What am I looking at? She asked, leaning over Paul's shoulder. These radiation patterns at the edge of the Kuiper belt. Paul pointed to a series of spikes on his graph. They're too regular to be natural, and they don't match any of our probes. Kate frowned. Could be instrument error, Run a diagnostic. Already did. Twice. Paul showed her another screen. And I cross-referenced with the European Space Agency. Data. They picked up the same thing. Kate's expression changed from skeptical to intrigued. Send me everything. I'll need to take this upstairs. 2 days later, Paul found Kate in the facility cafeteria. She sat alone at a corner table, stirring her coffee without drinking it. Hey, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Did you present my findings to Director Miller? Kate looked up, then glanced around to make sure nobody was listening. Yes, and it's weird, Paul, really weird. What did he say? Nothing, literally nothing. Kate leaned forward and lowered her voice. He looked at the data, made a phone call, then told me the matter was classified and to drop it. Paul stared at her. Classified? Why would unusual radiation patterns be classified? Exactly. Kate pushed her coffee aside. And this morning, I tried to access the original data files and they're gone. Everything we collected over the past week has been removed from the system. Paul checked his phone, then quickly opened his work laptop. After a few minutes of searching, his face held. Mine too. It's all gone. They looked at each other in silence. Finally, Paul spoke. So what do we do now? Kate thought for a moment. I made copies. Old school. She patted her bag. I wasn't sure why, but something felt off about this whole thing. We could be fired for that, Paul whispered. I know. Kate met his eyes steadily. But if something is out there, don't we deserve to know what it is? Paul considered this, then nodded slowly. My cousin Ben owns a radio telescope. Private operation in Wyoming. He lets me use it sometimes for personal projects. Could we get there this weekend? I'll make the arrangements. Paul closed his laptop. But Kate, if we're right about I know, she said quietly. Everything changes. As Paul and Kate made their plans, they had no idea that billions of miles away, the Galactic Council was forming a team to investigate Earth. Nor did they realize that their discovery would soon place them at the center of a conflict that had been brewing for centuries. The decision they made in that cafeteria would not only change their lives, but potentially the future of humanity itself. The special assessment team assembled by the Galactic Council worked in a large circular room filled with holographic displays. Nancy Clark led the team. She was a respected galactic anthropologist with short gray hair and intelligent eyes behind simple glasses. She had studied developing civilizations for over 200 years. Show me human technological progress over the last century. Nancy instructed the room's computer system. The air filled with glowing charts showing rapid growth curves. Nancy walked around them slowly, her face showing increasing concern. This acceleration doesn't make sense, she said to the 5 other specialists on her team. Look at this point here. She pointed to a spot on the timeline marked 1945 in human dating. This is when they developed nuclear weapons. Normal development should have slowed after this as they dealt with the ethical implications. But it didn't slow, said her assistant, a young analyst named Ryan Cooper. If anything, it got faster. Nancy nodded. Exactly. And here, when they developed global communication networks, we see another spike instead of the typical societal adjustment period. The team spent days analyzing every aspect of human development. They studied Earth's wars, scientific breakthroughs, and social structures. They watched their entertainment, read their literature, and examined their conflicts. A week later, Nancy stood before the full Galactic Council to present their findings. Honored council members, she began. Humans are developing unlike any species we have previously encountered. Their technology advances while their societal structures remain fractured and competitive. Nancy showed images of Earth's separate nations, ongoing conflicts, and divided political systems. Most species achieve unity before developing advanced technology, she explained. Humans are doing the opposite. They use their conflicts to drive innovation. Defense Director Greg Harris stood up. He was a large man with a square jaw and military bearing. This confirms my concerns. They are a naturally aggressive species. If they reach other populated systems, they could pose a serious threat. Nancy shook her head. That's oversimplified, Director. Yes, they have violent tendencies, but they also show remarkable cooperation when needed. Their space programs involve multiple nations working together despite political differences. Ambassador Jordan asked, could there be external interference? Could someone be accelerating their development artificially? Nancy hesitated. We found no direct evidence, but there are anomalies in their progress. Certain technologies appeared with limited preceding development. She displayed several examples. It's as if they occasionally make intuitive leaps beyond their current capabilities. The council debated long into the night. Some argued for immediate contact to guide humans toward peaceful integration. Others insisted on containment to prevent potential threats. A few even suggested more drastic measures. No consensus was reached except to continue the investigation. Meanwhile on Earth, Paul Fletcher and Kate Winters drove through the empty roads of rural Wyoming. Mountains rose in the distance against the night sky. After 3 hours, they turned onto a dirt road that led to a small observatory on private land. Ben Fletcher greeted them outside a modest building with a large radio telescope pointed at the stars. Cousin Paul. Ben embraced Paul warmly. He was shorter than Paul but had the same curly hair. And you must be Kate. Nice to meet you. He shook her hand. Paul says you have something interesting to check out. Kate nodded. Very interesting, if we're right, and potentially troubling if our government is hiding it. Inside, Ben's equipment was surprisingly advanced for a private observatory. They worked through the night, pointing the telescope toward the coordinates where Paul and Kate had detected the strange radiation patterns. There it is, Paul said, as the computer displayed the results. Same pattern. Definitely artificial. Ben whistled. That's not one of ours. The signal structure is nothing like any satellite or probe I've ever seen. So what is it? Kate asked, though she already suspected the answer. Something not from Earth, Ben replied quietly. They spent the next day analyzing the data. By evening, they had confirmed that multiple objects were moving at the edge of the solar system. Some appeared to be observing Earth. Others were in a holding pattern, as if waiting. We need to tell someone, Kate said. Who? Paul countered. NASA already classified this. The government knows and is keeping it quiet. There must be someone we can trust, Kate insisted. Ben thought for a moment. Maybe there is. I know a guy who used to work for a special projects division at NASA. He left under strange circumstances. Lives about 2 hours from here now. Would he talk to us? Paul asked. Only one way to find out. The next morning, they drove to a remote cabin nestled in the pine trees. An older man with a weathered face and careful eyes opened the door. This was Alan Hayes, former government scientist. Ben Fletcher, he said, recognizing only one of his visitors. Been a long time. Too long, Alan, Ben replied. These are friends who need your help. They found something. Alan studied Paul and Kate for a long moment, then stepped aside. Better come in. Inside, the cabin was simple but filled with advanced equipment. Computer screens displayed various data feeds and satellite images. When they showed Alan their findings, he wasn't surprised. I've been tracking them for years, he said, pulling up his own files. There are at least 7 different groups out there watching us. Maybe more. Groups? Kate asked. You mean different alien species? Alan nodded. Based on their technology signatures, yes. Some have been here since the 1940s. Paul sat down heavily. Why? What do they want? That's the question, isn't it? Alan turned to face them. Some seem to be just watching, others have been more involved. He showed them classified files he had taken when he left government service. The files contained evidence of recovered alien technology dating back to 1947. Reverse engineering projects. Breakthrough advances that came after studying these artifacts. Our technological explosion wasn't entirely our own doing, Alan explained. We've had help whether we knew it or not. But why would aliens give us technology? Kate asked. Alan's expression darkened. Not all of them did it to help us. Some of them seem to be preparing us. Preparing us for what? Paul asked. Alan looked at each of them in turn. War. Some of these groups appear to be ancient enemies. I think Earth has become their latest battlefield, and we're being shaped as the newest soldiers. The room fell silent as they absorbed this revelation. So what do we do with this information? Kate finally asked. That depends, Alan replied. Are you ready to become targets? Because once you try to make this public, both human and alien forces will come after you. Paul and Kate exchanged glances. They had come too far to turn back now. Show us everything you have, Paul said. We need to understand what we're dealing with. As they began examining Alan's extensive files, none of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the cabin window, transmitting everything they said to listeners both on Earth and far beyond it. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council's High Security Committee took place in a small, heavily guarded chamber. Only 7 council members had clearance to attend. Ambassador Ellis Jordan sat at the head of the oval table, his face grim. What you are about to see is deeply troubling, he said. Senior investigator Peter Walsh has uncovered evidence of unauthorized interference with Earth. A stocky man with a close-cropped beard stood up. He wore the black uniform of the Council's Security Division. My team followed the data trail from Observer Warren's discovery, Peter explained. We found encrypted communications between unauthorized ships near Earth and a hidden facility in the Praxis system. He activated a display showing a massive space station orbiting a red dwarf star. This facility belongs to Admiral Samuel Price, Peter continued. It appears he has been running a secret operation involving Earth for over 70 years. The committee members exchanged shocked glances. Admiral Price was a respected military leader with a distinguished career spanning 3 centuries. Bring him in, Ellis ordered. Immediately. 2 hours later, Admiral Price stood before the committee. His uniform displayed numerous medals, and despite being over 400 years old, he stood straight and proud. Admiral, Ellis began, you are accused of violating our most sacred directives on non-interference. How do you respond? Samuel smiled thinly. I was wondering when you would discover my project. This is no joke, Admiral, Victor Reeves snapped. You have illegally manipulated a developing species. You have placed the entire galactic order at risk. No, Samuel countered firmly. I have ensured our survival. He activated his own data device, displaying threat assessments and strategic analyses. The Drax horde has been expanding from the adjacent galaxy, Samuel explained. Our defensive perimeter is spread too thin. We needed a buffer species, one that could develop quickly and help defend that sector. Ellis shook his head in disbelief. So you chose humans, one of the most unpredictable species we have ever monitored? Precisely because they are unpredictable, Samuel replied. The Drax think alike, move alike. Humans are chaotic, innovative. They develop weapons and tactics the Drax cannot anticipate. You turned them into weapons, Nancy Clark said quietly from the doorway. She had been called to provide expert testimony. Did you consider what this would do to their natural development? Samuel's expression hardened. Their natural development would have ended with Drax enslavement. I gave them a chance to survive. By violating everything we stand for, Ellis said. The Council will decide your punishment, but first we must address the Earth situation. How extensive is your interference? More extensive than you imagine, Samuel replied with unexpected pride. But less than you fear. I merely provided occasional technological nudges. Their rapid development is largely their own doing. The committee deliberated for hours after Samuel was taken away. Finally, they reached a decision. We must establish contact, Ellis announced. We will send a diplomatic mission to Earth. Nancy Clark will lead it, accompanied by Security Chief Frank Wilson to ensure safety protocols. What about Admiral Price's operation? Victor asked. Shut it down, Ellis ordered. All his personnel are to be detained and questioned. We need to know exactly what he did and how to fix it. As the meeting adjourned, Nancy approached Ellis privately. You should know, she said softly. I don't believe Admiral Price was acting alone. The resources required for this operation far exceed what one person could access. Ellis nodded slowly. Find out the truth, Nancy, before it's too late. On Earth, Paul, Kate, and Alan worked frantically to organize the information they had discovered. Alan's cabin had become their headquarters, filled with computers, printouts, and makeshift communication equipment. These signals match the ones from the Wyoming Observatory, Paul said, pointing to patterns on his screen. But look at this. He highlighted a second pattern overlapping the first. There's some kind of response being sent back. Kate leaned closer. From where? Alan typed rapidly on his keyboard, triangulating the signal source. Multiple points around the globe, government facilities mainly. He paused, looking troubled. And some private corporations. You mean our own people are communicating with them? Kate asked. Alan nodded. For decades. But that's not the worst part. He brought up a series of classified documents. According to these files, different government agencies are communicating with different alien groups. The Pentagon has one contact, the Chinese military has another, the European coalition a third. They're playing the aliens against each other, Paul realized, getting technology from multiple sources. A dangerous game, Alan muttered, especially since the aliens seem to be doing the same thing with us. Kate sorted through more files. Look at this tech development timeline. Sudden advances in computer chips in the 1970s. Unexpected breakthroughs in materials science in the 1990s. Quantum computing last decade. All of them happened after recovered artifacts were studied. We've been building our civilization on borrowed technology, Paul said. No wonder the progress has been so rapid and uneven. Alan looked grim. And that's why our social development hasn't kept pace. We're getting technological answers without solving the underlying questions ourselves. They worked through the night, compiling evidence and connecting the dots. By morning, they had built a comprehensive picture of humanity's secret history, of alien contact. The public deserves to know, Kate said firmly. Alan shook his head. If we just release this, it will cause panic, or worse, people won't believe it at all. Then what do we do? Paul asked. We need to reach one of these alien groups directly, Alan suggested. Bypass our compromised governments entirely. Find out who's really behind all this. Kate looked skeptical. How? We can't exactly call them on the phone. Alan smiled for the first time since they'd met him. Actually, we can. He pulled out an old metal case from under his bed and opened it to reveal a strange device with crystalline components. This is how they contacted me 15 years ago. It's what led me to leave government service. Paul and Kate stared at the alien technology. You've had this all along? Paul asked. Why haven't you used it? I was waiting, Alan replied. For the right moment and the right people. He looked at them both. This device can send a message directly to the Galactic Council. I learned about them from my original contact. Why would they listen to us? Kate asked. Because, Alan said gravely, according to my contact, what's happening here violates their most important laws. Someone out there is manipulating both us and them. And it's time we all learned the truth. Alan activated the device, which began to glow with a soft blue light. None of them could have predicted how quickly their message would be answered, or how dramatically it would change everything. The diplomatic mission ship approached Earth with caution. It was designed to be undetectable by standard human scanning technology. Nancy Clark stood on the bridge beside Security Chief Frank Wilson, watching the blue planet grow larger on the Tom view screen. Beautiful, isn't it? Nancy said quietly. Frank nodded stiffly. He was tall and muscular with a serious face that rarely smiled. Beautiful but dangerous. Remember, our mission is to establish contact and assess the situation, not to make friends. Nancy had spent the journey studying human languages and customs. She was now fluent in several Earth languages and understood their complex social structures better than any other council member. The first scan results are coming in, said the ship's pilot. And there's something strange. Frank moved closer to the console. What is it? Human space presence. It's extensive. The pilot zoomed out to show a wider view of Earth's solar system. Dozens of small dots appeared, representing human-made structures and vessels. "That can't be right," Frank said. "According to our records, they have a few primitive space stations and a handful of satellites. These readings show military outposts throughout their system," the pilot replied. "Some appear heavily armed. Many are hidden with technology that should be beyond their capabilities." Nancy exchanged worried glances with Frank. Admiral Price's influence was greater than we thought. Frank's expression darkened. "Or there are other players involved." Before they could discuss further, an alert sounded. 3 objects were approaching their ship at high speed. "Impossible," the pilot gasped. "They shouldn't be able to detect us." "Evasive action," Frank ordered. "Wait," Nancy countered. "They're not attacking. I think they're escorting us." A communication request came through on a frequency the Council had never used for Earth monitoring. Nancy accepted the call. A human woman in a military uniform appeared on screen. She had short red hair and a stern expression. "Unidentified vessel," she said firmly. "This is General Diane Murphy of Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space. State your identity and purpose." Nancy stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Nancy Clark of the Galactic Council. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact with Earth leadership." General Murphy's expression didn't change. "We've been expecting representatives from your council for some time. Follow our escort to the Lunar Diplomatic Facility." The transmission ended abruptly. Frank turned to Nancy with alarm. "They were expecting us? They know about the council? This is all wrong." Nancy nodded slowly. "Someone has been sharing information. We need to find out who." Their ship followed the human vessels to Earth's moon. A large base was built into the far side, hidden from Earth observation. It was far more advanced than humans should have been, capable of building. As they docked, Frank made sure the security team was prepared. "Stay alert. This could be a trap." They were led to a large conference room with a circular table. General Murphy waited with several military and civilian officials. "Welcome to Luna Base," she said without warmth. "Now perhaps you can explain why your council has been observing Earth for centuries without making contact." Nancy tried to hide her surprise. "General, how do you know about the Galactic Council?" "We've known about you for decades," Murphy replied. "Just as we've known about the American Alliance, the Xyler Confederation, and several other alien groups that have been meddling in our affairs." Frank stepped forward. "If you know about the Council, then you know we have strict non-interference policies with developing worlds." Murphy laughed bitterly. "Non-interference, is that what you call it? We have evidence of at least 7 different alien factions influencing Earth's development, some openly, some covertly." She activated a display showing detailed records of alien contact throughout human history. "We've been playing catch-up," Murphy continued, "trying to understand who wants what from us and why. It hasn't been easy, especially when different nations made separate deals with different alien groups." Nancy felt a chill. "General, the Council did not authorize any contact with Earth. If alien groups have been interfering, they've been acting against our laws." "Convenient excuse," Murphy said coldly. "We've been waiting for you to finally show yourselves. We've detected your observation posts at the edge of our system for years." Frank's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. The tension in the room was building. Nancy tried again. "General, I assure you, if there has been interference, it was unauthorized. In fact, we've recently discovered that one of our military leaders, Admiral Samuel Price, was running a secret operation involving Earth. He's been detained." Murphy's eyes narrowed. "Just one rogue admiral? You expect us to believe that?" "It's the truth," Nancy insisted. "We're here to understand the full extent of the situation and to establish proper diplomatic relations." Before Murphy could respond, Frank moved suddenly, activating a device on his wrist. The lights in the room flickered and the human security systems momentarily disabled. "What are you doing?" Nancy demanded. "Testing a theory," Frank said grimly. He pointed to Murphy's security team. Their weapons had automatically deactivated when his device triggered. "Those are Xyler design, not human technology." Murphy's face hardened. Protective measures. We've learned to adapt alien technology for our defense. Against whom? Frank challenged. The Council? Or the other alien factions competing for influence here? The confrontation was interrupted by a young officer rushing into the room. General, we're receiving an emergency broadcast. It's being transmitted globally on all frequencies. Put it on screen, Murphy ordered. The display showed 3 humans in a modest cabin surrounded by equipment. Nancy recognized them from the briefing files as Paul Fletcher, Kate Winters, and Alan Hayes. People of Earth, Alan said firmly, and any watching alien factions. We have uncovered the truth about humanity's secret history. For decades, multiple alien groups have been manipulating our development, providing technology in exchange for resources and strategic advantage, Paul continued. Different governments have made separate deals with different alien groups, keeping us divided while accelerating our technological growth. Kate added, this explains our uneven development. Advanced technology without the social progress to match it. We've been given the tools without earning the wisdom to use them properly. Alan held up a strange device. Using this alien communication technology, we've contacted the Galactic Council directly. We've shared our evidence of widespread interference in Earth's development, which violates their own laws. The broadcast cut to displays of classified documents, signal recordings, and recovered alien artifacts. In the lunar conference room, Nancy and Frank exchanged shocked glances. General Murphy's expression was unreadable. It seems, Nancy said quietly, we have much to discuss. The Galactic Council chambers were more crowded than they had been in centuries. Every member race had sent representatives for this historic session. Ambassador Ellis Jordan stood at the center podium, looking out at the assembled delegates. Today we face an unprecedented situation, Ellis began. For the first time in Council history, we must welcome representatives from a species that has not yet achieved unified planetary government or independently developed faster-than-light travel. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many delegates looked unhappy with this breach of tradition. Others seemed curious or even excited. The humans before you, Ellis continued, have uncovered a conspiracy that spans multiple worlds and species. They deserve to be heard. Ellis stepped aside, allowing Paul, Kate, and Alan to approach the podium. They had been brought directly from Earth after their broadcast. Their journey to the Council homeworld had taken only days, a fact that still amazed them. Alan spoke first. Honored delegates, we come as unofficial representatives of humanity. Our governments do not know we are here, as many of them are compromised by secret agreements with various alien factions. Kate stepped forward. For decades, Earth has been a battleground for competing interests. Different nations receive technology from different alien sources, accelerating our development in dangerous and unbalanced ways. We now understand, Paul added, that this violates your most basic laws regarding developing worlds. But it seems the violations go far beyond what you have discovered so far. They presented the evidence they had gathered, showing how at least 7 different alien groups had established contact with various Earth governments. Some offered medical technology in exchange for biological samples. Others provided weapons, designs for strategic resources. All of them kept their activities hidden from the Council. When they finished, the Council chamber erupted in angry debate. Ellis called for order. We have much to discuss, he said firmly. But first, we must hear from those directly involved. He turned to where Admiral Samuel Price was being held by security officers. Admiral, it seems your operation was merely one part of a much larger web of interference. Did you know about these other activities? Samuel straightened his shoulders. I suspected but could not prove it. My mission was to prepare humanity to help defend against the Drax horde. I believed I acted alone. But you didn't, came a new voice. Victor Reeves, the blue-skinned Aldorian representative, stood from his seat. You had help. High-level help. The chamber fell silent as Victor walked slowly to the center of the floor. I regret to inform this council that members of the Aldorian High Command have been supporting Admiral Price's operation for nearly 2 centuries. His voice was heavy with shame. We believed the Drax threat justified breaking our laws. Another delegate stood, then another. 5 different council races admitted their involvement in secret Earth operations. Some claimed security concerns. Others spoke of scientific curiosity. All had violated the council's most sacred principles. Ellis looked stunned. This goes beyond individual actions. This represents a fundamental breakdown of our governing structure. Nancy Clark, who had returned from the Earth mission, stepped forward. Perhaps it also represents a fundamental flaw in our approach to developing worlds. Our policy of non-interference through silent observation is itself a form of interference. When the observed become aware of being watched, she gestured toward the humans. Earth detected our observation posts years ago. Not knowing our intentions, they prepared for possible invasion. Can we blame them for seeking advantages wherever they could find them? Frank Wilson nodded in agreement. Their military outposts throughout their solar system weren't built for conquest. They were built for defense, against us and any other alien presence they detected. The council debated long into the night. Eventually, Ellis called for a formal vote. We have 2 options before us, he announced. We can attempt to contain Earth, limiting their further development until they achieve the social harmony we believe necessary for galactic citizenship. He paused, looking around the chamber. Or we can acknowledge our own failings and welcome Earth into the galactic community now, helping them address the social and political divisions that our interference helped create. The vote was close, but in the end, the council chose engagement over containment. 3 months later, the first official Earth delegation arrived at council headquarters. The chosen representatives included scientists, diplomats, and military leaders from every major nation. Among them was General Diane Murphy, now serving as Earth's first defense attaché to the council. As they entered the Grand Council chamber, Councillor Reeves leaned toward Ambassador Jordan. "Are we certain this is wise?" he whispered. "They're still so young as a species, so divided and unpredictable." Ellis watched as the human delegation moved through the protocols with surprising adaptability. Despite their different backgrounds, they worked together smoothly, adjusting quickly to the alien environment. "Perhaps that's exactly what our ancient council needs," he replied. "A reminder of what it means to be young." Paul, Kate, and Alan watched from a viewing gallery. They had been offered official positions with the new Earth Council Cooperation Initiative but had declined. Instead, they had established an independent monitoring organization to ensure transparency between Earth and the galactic community. "Do you think it will work?" Kate asked. "This awkward partnership between Earth and the Council?" Paul looked down at the humans and aliens beginning formal diplomatic relationships. "It has to. The alternative is worse for everyone. Besides," Alan added with a smile, "humans are good at one thing above all else: adapting. We've survived ice ages, pandemics, and our own worst tendencies. We can survive peace with aliens too." In the chamber below, the Council formally welcomed Earth as a provisional member of galactic society. It wasn't a perfect solution. Earth still had many internal conflicts to resolve. The Council still had corrupt elements to purge. But it was a beginning, and as the various species mingled, sharing knowledge and culture for the first time, even the skeptics had to admit that perhaps the fear which had spread through the Galactic Council when they first discovered Earth's rapid advancement had been misplaced. They weren't invading after all. They were simply finding their place in a much larger community than they had ever imagined.